I was kidnapped in the middle of the night and flown to Minnesota here, and I have been talking about the Bible, how to read the Bible well for the Lutheran Institute of Theology. So this is just chill and easy because I think I've given, seven lectures on reading the Bible, on hermeneutics. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So one of the things, and I kind of want to hear your thought on why you're excited about this, the Lutheran Institute of Theology, which we've, just in the last week or two, we've kind of gone public with.
Right,
but, one thing that I think kind of struck me as you were presenting was, people fly you out to whatever, the fly
assorted
Colorado,
places,
Seattle, whatever. Like they fly you out,
and
then people kind of gather so that you can present on this topic.
Right.
And then that group of 150 people
disperse,
and they've been edified by it, and that's great.
Right.
But what we're able to do here is fly you out, kidnap you, etc.
Right.
And then you can give this presentation in a polished way where it has even more kind of like written resources, things like that, kind of up the ante. But now it's not just Seattle. Like now you've got a national, you've got a global impact. You can go back and rewatch these things and look at notes, and it seems to me like a resource for deeper learning.
100%, because the idea is we are filling a gap that has existed forever that has not been filled, which is getting coherent, clear confessional Lutheran theology to anybody who wants to learn. I mean, probably 2 times a day, I see on some Facebook group of 45,000 people, like, can I get a class in, systematics? I don't want to go to seminary, and that's exactly what Lit is doing. Mm-hmm. So I was happy to be renditioned by the CIA to Minnesota for the last couple of days.
Even people in Pittsburgh are going to be able to.
Yeah, right. Even in Pittsburgh, it's going to be accessible, even though we're kind of, otherwise, it's still 1998 in Pittsburgh, which is great in many ways. But
so why do you think this resource hasn't been out there in the past here in the Lutheran Church? Because we've talked about, it's there in the Catholic Church, for instance.
It is.
They've got some good resources.
There's several different reasons for that. And I think maybe the biggest one is that very often, even when Lutherans want to care about the outside world, it's hard to muster the energy. And in order to understand why there would be a need for something like Lit, you have to understand both the fact that the outside world just sort of matters more in shaping our own people's theology and life than we give it credit for. So if we're not responding, if we're doing absolutely routine activities in absolutely routine ways that maybe were helpful or were adequate theologically in 1988 when people's information sources are more restricted. Mm-hmm. But if once you realize they're getting their information from all over the place, they're watching all kinds of stuff, and people who are currently outside the Lutheran Church who could be here, who probably want to be here if they only knew about it, if they can get access, that's incredible. And I think you have to kind of keep your focus on what is actually going on in order to understand why it's so necessary. If you just kind of go back inside Lutheran land and you say, we're good, we're fine. I mean, not that necessarily we are, or we're all saying that, but like it, if you go back inside your shell, then the necessity fades, right?
Yeah, one thing that struck me, and this is kind of back when we were kind of crafting this and talking on the phone about it, is, I like taking these courses. I would take Hillsdale courses before, which is great because I could take things on C.S. Lewis, on American history, the Constitution.
Yeah, right.
Right, things that I wouldn't expect for the Lutheran Church to put out. But then there'd be times where I'd be preparing for different, we do like crash courses, so the kind of like seminar, like weekend seminars that we do. So I'd be looking for kind of visual and audio resources.
Yeah.
And podcasts are great, but if you want to go a little bit more in depth on something, you go out and you try to find like these courses that you can take, for cheap or for free.
Yep.
And I came across the Word on Fire one, which is the Catholic version of it. And they had some good courses that weren't on like Catholic specific things, but they were on like specific topics that I was interested in, such as the 7 deadly sins.
Yep.
And, beautifully put together. I was able to learn a lot. And then I stumbled across, they had one on Catholicism.
Yeah.
Right? And it was beautifully done. And so I was like, I just want to, see what they're saying. How do they want to articulate this? And it was so well done that after the first episode, emotionally speaking, I was like, wow, it's got to be really cool to be a Catholic, because it was just so well done.
Yeah.
And of course, I did not convert to Catholicism.
Yeah, right.
After
as far
that.
as we know, yeah.
But if I didn't, honestly speaking, if I didn't know have the theological training, or the family background or anything like that, that one course. Yeah. And I only went through about half of it.
Right.
That is enough to make you want to go to the Catholic Church.
Yeah, right.
And it just so happens that's part of, at least Bishop Barron, but the broader church has embraced it to say, yeah, this actually does work.
Yeah,
a young person that doesn't isn't fully Lutheran, or they're trying to figure out Christianity. If they come across that, they're going to Catholicism.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean the person is definitely leaving Lutheranism. But if they're coming into Christianity and they encounter that, they're definitely going to the Catholic Church. They're not even looking at other ones. And then it was like, okay, well, do we have something out there like that to that caliber? And the answer was simply no. And it's like, okay, well, one, we're missing a lane for outreach that I think is very potent.
Yep.
And then two, we're actually not giving any kind of defense to people within our own walls that might come across something like this because there's no other resource. Right. Like you said, they're going to go out and they're going to be formed by it. Yep. And then they might walk out the doors of the Lutheran Church and into the Catholic Church. And we've never really provided a strong buffer in that lane.
No. And it's an acceptance, too, that, maybe there's a great book about this. Maybe they should read the small called articles and learn about the nature of the papacy, but they're not going to right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's its own problem. That's an educational problem. You have to start, if you're trying to educate people, where they already are, and then get them to a better place. And so producing really well-made courses that are very information dense gives them something to learn and a lot to grow into, right? So that, one day they can read the small called articles and actually follow what it's saying, which a lot of kids struggle to do today. So to start in a place where they're comfortable, they're going to watch something and provide them with great stuff. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you say that, it's supposed to be an on-ramp into churches.
Yes.
Yeah. Or just a resource for churches to continue to edify their people in a way that keeps them there, where they've got these extra resources.
Right.
And then you can read the small called articles
later
at church.
Yeah, I think that ignoring the fact that the modern world exists, communicates in certain ways, shares information in certain ways, that's a certain tack you can take.
Mm-hmm.
That's a strategy you can pursue. And I think Lutherans have been wittingly or unwittingly pursuing that strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not really Luddites, right? We're just into antiques.
Yeah.
Or we're still using them.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of sympathy with Luddites just on a personal, emotional level.
What's Luddites mean?
A Luddite, they revolted against machines during the Industrial Revolution, started to destroy the machines that were replacing their hand spinning and weaving of cloth in England.
Mm-hmm.
Followers of Mr. Ludd. So that's a Luddite, and on an emotional level, I get it. But the world exists as it does, so we have to communicate with people in a way that's going to be comprehensible and helpful to them.
Yeah. Right. So one more question on lit, and then I kind of want to transition to what you're kind of hinting towards as far as what's the scope of the Lutheran Church right now.
Yeah.
Adam Koontz's letter to save the Lutheran Church. It's a little grandiose, but
it's a little. I could not take myself that seriously. But
no. But so what would you like to see kind of beyond? What can this grow into? How can you see this? In 5-7 years having an impact and stuff?
Yeah. Well, I like history, so I just use a historical analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Is that when radio was taking off, the Lutheran Hour started. And it had two roles. One was it tied the Lutheran churches together, such that they advertised themselves as the Church of the Lutheran Hour, because that was known to the general population.
We still have a brick thing out there.
I've got one too.
Yeah, it says the Church of the Lutheran Hour.
I've got one too. I'm not confident that people know what that is, but I'm happy to have the sign.
Mm-hmm.
So it unifies the Lutheran Church. It also worked like a kind of fishing net to bring people in.
Mm-hmm.
And I see Lit's role as very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty there. In fact, more than the Lutheran Hour was ever intended to have. Tons for pastors and churches and lay leaders and people in the congregation to grow in their own understanding who are already there and who have been there. There's going to be plenty there. But also that it can serve in the same way that On the Line serves as a funnel to bring people into learning more about Lutheranism.